What's up, guys? It's Christian here, and welcome back to the Adventures of an AvGeek, where today we are going to be talking about Spirit Airlines' recent shutdown. Now, I'm very sad to be presenting this news to you. Obviously, they had been struggling financially for a long time, and unfortunately, it all came down to an end very recently and very suddenly. And so now, I will say, guys, I'm quite surprised that we are in this situation to begin with, because I have watched a whole video about how budget airlines work and why they work so well most of the time, created by Whenever Productions. And it had said that because of certain things, that budget airlines are usually more profitable than traditional airlines. And for those of you who don't know, by budget airlines, I mean Spirit Airlines, Frontier Airlines, Allegiant Air, these ultra low cost carriers that may charge a low base fare, but where they really make their money is with baggage fees, with seat fees, and stuff like that. And traditional airlines being United Airlines, American Airlines, Delta Airlines, those who have the majority of the market share in the United States and have been around for the longest, hence why they're called traditional airlines. So yeah, with that said, I'm quite surprised that it's led to this point. But yeah, unfortunately, we're here and they succumb to their financial struggles. So with that said, we're going to react to a couple of videos put out by very reliable sources to me. First is DJ's Aviation, his video about Spirit Airlines shutting down. And of course, by the way, guys, I plan to make more videos about what I think this means for the industry and stuff like that. So if you want to see those, as well as other aviation content such as plane spotting and travel vlogs, then subscribe to my channel. You will not regret it. And with that said, let's get into DJ's Aviation's video.
There's no real sugarcoating it. These kind of videos suck to make, and many of you, especially in the United States, will be waking up to the news. You will have gone to sleep last night, no doubt holding your breath. Was Spirit Airlines going to make it through the night? The answer: no. After 34 years of service in its current form, the airline now no longer exists. A complete wind down is underway. Late Friday evening in the US, reports emerged that Spirit Airlines was unlikely to survive the night, as covered here on the channel. Americans' breaths, not just for the brand that has been a staple of the US industry for so long, but for the many people who have fundamentally helped create the airline's story over time. And
hey, and let's not forget people who had travel plans with Spirit. And it's amazing to see too how, of course, it's not amazing to see that Spirit has shut down, but definitely cool to see how other airlines in the U.S. have, stepped in to help passengers out and employees who were negatively affected by the shutdown. So major props to the rest of the U.S. airlines for pitching in and helping people out. That's awesome.
Made the company what it has been right to the very end, who will now be without a job. Unfortunately, in the early hours of the morning, Saturday, the 2nd of May, the final Spirit Airlines flight would land, and cancellations in the hours prior would balloon out. It felt somewhat inevitable, and like we were waiting for that final word, which we did eventually get. The airline confirming it would wind down all of its operations, advising all customers against heading to the airport for their flight that would no longer take place. The airline says that an orderly wind down has been put into effect immediately. And with that, it's updated its website, socials, and more to reflect that there are no scheduled flights anymore and there's no flights available for booking. Customer service also not available. The airline saying that everything has slammed shut. A business that reaffirms as well it's proud of the impact it made on ultra low cost travel across the last 34 years. Those are
Yes. From my understanding, Spirit Airlines was the pioneer of ultra low cost travel, right? They founded, and then we saw Frontier Airlines and Allegiant Air follow suit. And that's the thing too, guys, is that Spirit Airlines, they were always going to have passengers, right? Because, they can beat other airlines on routes, just based on price. And so, yeah, that's why it's really, sad to see, is because, they were really serving a market of, you know, ultra low cost and helping people save money, especially if you're like only traveling with a backpack. It would really help out. Help you save money. Um, so yeah, no doubt in my mind that they have made a tremendous impact on the aviation industry. Hence, why it's so sad to see. But yeah, continuing on.
Heartbreaking words to have to hear, and now it is a business unable to continue despite the best efforts of them after entering bankruptcy protection, remember, in late 2025 for the second time in as many years. While Spirit Airlines had in the last month or so actually been broadcasting a bit more of a positive outlook that it would exit bankruptcy protection as soon as this summer season, Bloomberg just 2 weeks ago pushed back at this dialogue where its sources suggested that Spirit could collapse in a matter of days if there was not some kind of intervention. This is very much contradicting what Spirit was saying, but what the industry was feeling. Now, with the airline having collapsed, its website reflects the end of an era for our US aviation industry. And the many people who relied so heavily on this type of service, an ultra low cost model amidst legacy airlines that charge triple the price and naturally have a model that, while is profitable, is out of reach for just so many. While the Spirit Airlines shutdown had, been inevitable, it felt for many years. Even remember airline executives of other US airlines felt this. The business naturally did everything that it was able to do to stabilize itself, restructure, cut costs, and build for the future. But this did not have the desired effect. Spirit Airlines' life, however, did have a bit of a slither of hope. Remember when President Trump indicated in the last week or so that someone should buy Spirit, not just to secure the many employees who rely on this airline for their employment, but also to protect the ultra-low-cost model within the United States. It's imperative that every country has some kind of low-cost alternative, and especially he quoted at blue-collar workers who demand these prices. What was considered to be a $500 million USD taxpayer bailout would give the US government control over the airlines from the Iran conflict eased. Immediately, however, it raised alarm bells. It was seen to be progressing initially to give the business a bit of a slim chance of surviving, but unfortunately, days after being proposed, the last-ditch attempt to save the airline, a highly touted deal, hit a roadblock, with talks stalling as pushback occurred from within the airline. This was something analysts already had flagged. Now, Spirit Airlines will wind up its operations. It's the end of another low-cost carrier.
Yeah.
Not just in the United States, but a theme we're seeing around the world. The pressures being too strong, soaring operating costs. Amid an ongoing recovery, it's the final straw. Some would have said no matter what happened, the business model at Spirit wasn't meant to last. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and that's the thing, guys. And so, like, to be more specific about like what I was talking about earlier with, the kinds of things that budget airlines are able to do in order to, be as profitable as they are, right? This includes having only one kind of aircraft so that, you don't have to train your flight attendants on a whole bunch of different aircraft, that flying into lower, like, for example, like Spirit doesn't just fly into LAX. They also fly into, Burbank, right? Like lower airports that cost less to operate in within that same like metropolitan area, as well as operating, new aircraft, because, even though newer aircraft are more expensive, they're more efficient. And so, yeah, obviously, but that's a sad thing, guys, that like it seems that like despite all of this, it wasn't enough for Spirit. And it wasn't enough for, quite a few low cost carriers who have collapsed over the last several years. So yeah, really sad to see.
Sad not just for the many people who will now lose access to these low-cost fares, but for the many people that made this airline what it was. This was their employment, and now they will be without the business. It's the end of a chapter. It's an unfortunate one, and I hate to be one of those people. I truly do. But the industry will now move on very quickly. And what I mean by that is move on to other US airlines that have been in the spotlight for their loss-making history and the concerns about whether they will be able to stabilize and prosper in a future industry. That is why this.
So yeah, yeah, DJ's right about that. Is that like now with Spirit Airlines shutting down, you have to, if you're an airline, you have to look in the mirror and, think, is it like, what can you learn from this, to apply to your own situation? And, if the question is, am I next? Then that creates, worry and alarm bells and stress. Yeah, DJ's absolutely right about that, because look, whatever airline you are, it's very hard to survive in the aviation industry as a commercial airline, a passenger airline. And so, yeah, DJ's absolutely right in that, yes, the airline industry moves on, right? We have passengers who flew for Spirit will fly on other airlines, and people who worked at Spirit or worked at other companies, more than likely other airlines. But yes, things do move on, and then another airline will come into the spotlight as, someone who we are concerned about. Yeah, he's right about that.
Sector has been so put under a microscope. What airlines are going to make it out of these recent economic crises? Is consolidation going to be required, or is the reality that Spirit has found itself in going to be a theme over the next, say, couple of years? It is something worth bringing up, but that is a story for another day. Now, after 30 plus years of service in its current form, Spirit Airlines is no more.
Yeah, so love DJ's breakdown about everything that's going on with Spirit. Absolutely right about a lot of stuff. And yeah, as I made comments in the video, definitely you can see, what's happening and the reality, like what this shows about the reality of the commercial aviation industry and how tough it is out here, and what not just Spirit, but all airlines are going through. And now, without further ado, let's get into Simple Flying's breakdown of this whole situation.
By now, many of you are aware that Spirit Airlines has ceased operations. Indeed, the last Spirit Airlines flight NK 1833 from Detroit to Dallas-Fort Worth, touched down shortly after midnight in the early hours of Saturday, May 2nd, marking the end of 34 years of operations for the ultra-low-cost.
And that's crazy, too. Like, imagine being on that flight and then coming to find out this is the last time that you'll fly Spirit Airlines. I don't know. That just seems crazy to me, like how that would be.
Yeah. Despite presenting a viable restructuring plan to investors in March, the carrier said it had no choice but to shutter operations amid recent material increases in oil prices, among other factors. Let's look at the details of this unfortunate situation for today's video.
And that's interesting too, because as I said, one thing that budget airlines do that traditional airlines don't is that they operate newer aircraft. And Spirit Airlines bragged about, well, let me rephrase that, made it a point of marketing that they have a new fleet. And so you get the new plane smell, and, that's all, well and good. And so, because what comes with that, guys, is that like you will have, more fuel efficient aircraft. And so, but even still, succumbing to how, fuel prices have risen, yeah, it's really sad. I'm really sad for them.
Simple Flying reported on the 1st of May that the carrier was preparing to wind down following failed government rescue talks. A day later, Spirit Airlines released a statement confirming it had cancelled all flights and would cease operations by 3 a.m. Eastern Time on May 2nd. US airlines have rushed to fill the void left by Spirit's exit, offering rescue fares for stranded passengers. The US Department of Transportation also stepped in to coordinate efforts and help former Spirit workers with new employment opportunities. Becoming the #1 most tracked flight worldwide on Flight Radar 24, Flight NK 1833 landed in Dallas at 9 minutes after midnight local time, following almost 3 hours in the air. With Spirit's future still up in the air when the flight first departed Detroit, Rumors indeed suggested the ULCC was preparing to cease operations as early as Saturday.
Wow.
This intensified once the airline started cancelling flights scheduled to land after midnight. As noted by aviation insider John Ostrower, Spirit had just 10 planes left in the sky by 12:24 a.m. Eastern Time on Saturday,
Wow.
eventually whittling down to just 3 flights.
Wow.
Dave Davis, president and CEO of Spirit Airlines, thanked the Trump administration for its quote-unquote extraordinary efforts to save the beleaguered airline, adding, "For more than 30 years, Spirit Airlines has played a pioneering role in making travel more accessible. The sudden and sustained rise in fuel prices in recent weeks has ultimately left us with no alternative but to pursue an orderly wind down. This is tremendously disappointing and not the outcome any of us wanted." Spirit's collapse has been a long time coming. Despite once ranking as one of the country's most profitable carriers, a series of mounting issues has made its demise almost inevitable. A critical turning point was the Department of Justice's block of a proposed $3.8 billion merger with JetBlue in 2024, leaving Spirit without a viable Plan B.
And yeah, if that went through, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation.
Then turned to a possible merger with Frontier Airlines last year, but this failed to gain traction.
And that would have been crazy too, right?
The airline has also grappled with the grounding of a sizable chunk of its Airbus A320 fleet due to manufacturing defects in Pratt & Whitney's geared turbofan engines, at one point placing almost 10% of its fleet out of action. Skyrocketing jet fuel prices proved the final straw for Spirit, which made one last effort to stay afloat through a proposed $500 million federal bailout package. Along with cancelling all flights, its customer service teams are also unavailable, leaving thousands of passengers booked on Spirit services in the lurch. However, the airline has promised to refund any flights purchased through Spirit with a credit or debit card, while those booked through a third party must contact their agent for a refund. Were you one of the thousands of travellers impacted by Spirit Airlines' sudden shutdown? Share your experiences.
Yeah, man. Yeah, obviously a very sad situation to see this happen to any airline. And of course, not Spirit, because they, as I said before, they served a great purpose and a great need with budget airline travel. And so, yeah, it's hard to see. And in the coming days, I'll probably have more content about this situation. So subscribe if you want to see that. And thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. I'd love to have a conversation with y'all. And subscribe for more aviation content. And by the way, I'm approaching 1,000 subscribers at the time of releasing with this video. So I got some plans coming up for that. So first off, I'll be sharing my story. I'll be sharing making a video sharing about how I got into aviation and what that's led to, what made me want to start my channel, what made me want to go to school and pursue an aerospace engineering degree, all those kinds of things. So if that sounds interesting, please hit subscribe and stay tuned for that. And also, I'll be doing a Q&A video where you can ask whatever questions you want via either the comment section of this video or comment sections of any of my other videos, or DM me those questions on Instagram and I'll answer them. And the last thing I'll say is that I've got a private community for aviation enthusiasts like you and me, and where we can discuss stuff about travel, about aircraft, and about aviation news. And it's a great community to be a part of, direct interaction with me. And yeah, it's a great thing to be a part of. So yeah, that's all I've got. Stay tuned for more content. I love y'all and take care.